And away we go. Good morning, guys. It's the 16th of May, Saturday morning. This is a code mentoring webinar 2. Last week, we were looking into how we break down this UI, right, into HTML and CSS using Sass. That should be recorded on YouTube, so you guys can go and check out that first video if you haven't seen it yet. Just a little bit about us. We are code mentoring. We're a community, a worldwide international community of developers helping each other learn and grow and become the best people that we can. So that's a little bit about us. One note is this website is currently under construction. So if you click on these links, some of them don't work. Okay, so jumping into where we were last week, we have this code that's living on GitHub. And this is where we're currently at with the UI. So last week we kind of covered the top section. I was showing you guys how we break this down. I was adding some boxes around this to show you, how I would group these things and whatnot. This morning we're going to start off with this card component, right, and duplicating each of these. So this is going to be the first part. Now, as I mentioned before, the HTML for this is actually all done. So if you come into the index HTML, I'm just going to collapse that sidebar. Bring this up over here. So, where are we? Too many windows. There we go. So all of this HTML here is currently what we need. I don't think we need any extra HTML for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So what do we notice, team, about this card? Is there anything in particular that we want to use or that we want to be aware of in a CSS perspective? What are some of the properties you guys notice? How would you start styling this card?
Have like a section.
Section? You mean like a HTML section?
Yeah.
I think we've already got that. So if we go down, I think we put that in the header. Where was it? Yeah. So we have this section already, which is the section title, section title. So that's already in here. From a HTML perspective, I think it's pretty good. Remember, we're using an ordered list. We spoke a little bit last week about the difference between an unordered list and an ordered list. In this case, I call it an ordered list because it seems to be like the order matters here. You want to have this one at the top, is add new card, and then the sequential kind of thing. That's just semantics. It doesn't really matter. But more from a CSS perspective, was there anything that potentially we might want to watch out for? Any tricks to this?
The corners are curved.
Yep, corners. There's actually a slight shadow. So I'm going to zoom in really quite a lot here, just so you guys can see. There's like a shadow, a drop shadow here, right? But aside from that, it's honestly not that much of a complex element. This UI thing.
And Cal says
we've got two different types.
Cal says in the chat, margins, padding.
Border radius. Just standard.
Yeah, border radius is the curve.
Yeah, so for those rounded things. So just a standard kind of element. There's nothing really fancy going on here. There's no tricks really involved. There might be a little bit of a trick with how we do. We'll probably use display flex to get these guys on the same line and playing nicely together. So I'm talking about this button and this text. But aside from that, pretty standard. So let's go ahead into our Sass. It's going to load up I think we'll put this under a new element. We'll call this, card, a CSS. And I'll make it plural, cards. So the first thing I'm going to do is just select this root level OL, we can work with that. OL.cards, and everything in here will just apply to what we're building there. So it might be a little bit tricky to do this, but I'll try and split this into 2 windows. Might make it a little bit hard to see if we can do this. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so is that readable for everyone? You guys can see this okay? We've got our Sass over here, we've got our HTML here, and we've got our design here, just to help with that switching around. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to start styling this list item, right, in here. So we've got a margin of, or sorry, a padding of about 16 pixels. All right, so it's going to say padding 1.6 rem. Just a reminder from last week, we set the base font size to 10 pixels, which means that the relative root is base 10. So 1.6 times 10, which is 16. So that's a handy trick. I'm going to set the border radius to, let's say, about, just going to guesstimate, let's say about 8 pixels. What else have we got? That's probably it. Background white. Background white. We're going to have, I think it's the same level of spacing between these guys as it is the padding. Yep, 16 pixels. So I'm going to go margin bottom, 1.6 rem. Same thing. And then we've also got this drop shadow. So I'm just going to guesstimate this. Say box shadow. Now, who knows the properties of the box shadow? I think we might have covered this last week. Just to recap. Remember what they were? Come on, guys. For those who are here, you guys should know this. So the first one is the X, so how far on the X-axis the shadow moves. In this case, I think it's centered. I'm going to say 0. In the second case, it's the Y, so how far down does the shadow go? Now, this looks to be pretty deep, so I'm actually going to set this to about probably twice the height of the margin bottom. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to say 3.2 rem, about 32 pixels. All right, the second one is the blur. So how much is it blur? Now, this is blurring quite a lot. So I'm actually going to set the blur to the same level as how far it's moving down. And we'll just give it a faint gray. So we'll just say DDD as a hex code. And we'll see what this looks like. Come in here, refresh. Okay, so that hasn't changed anything. Can anybody tell me why? Why hasn't that changed anything? Well, the reason is because we have to add that to the base CSS. We're importing all the components here. So we created that new component. We're just going to go import components / cards. And then we also need to run. So if you go, I think I created a command for watching. So I'm just going to go yarn watch. If you don't have yarn installed, you can do npm run watch. That will do the same thing. I'm not going to get, as I mentioned last week, this is not a tutorial on npm or Node.js or anything like that. So if it doesn't make sense, don't worry, we can cover that in another week. Okay, so that's built our CSS now. So go back and refresh. Okay, here we go. Now we're cooking with gas. So what do we notice, team? What are some things about what we've just done that you guys notice? Well, the first thing for me that sticks out is this drop shadow is very intense. I think we can take that down. Now, the way I'm going to do that is when I'm actually going to make it closer to white. So the closer it is to white, the less this drop shadow is going to. There we go. So that's looking a little better. But still, it's still quite intense. So I'm going to make it even lighter. Let's say FA, FA, FA. That's really just a touch. There we go. So that's pretty accurate, I'd say. There's a slight one there. You guys can play with this yourself, right? Playing with your own colors and stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So I'm pretty happy with these two. What else have we got? So the padding. I'm just going to zoom out to what it actually looks like in real time. Might make it a little darker. Say F8. All right. So what else have we got? So the next thing I'll probably do is start on the button. Right. Any questions on anything we've covered so far? Just on how we've set up the CSS, or the Sass, I should say.
Yeah, we got a question from Ivan. Does OS matter?
Does OS, as in the operating system?
Yeah, operating system.
No, the OS. I'm assuming you're talking about building the project. No, this is all platform agnostic, so you can run this on any platform you want. I think that's what you're asking. Cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually get started with the with the buttons now. So we've got two different things here. We've got the plus and these three dots. Now, usually for something like this, I'd use an icon. Right. In our case, I'm actually just going to hack it together and probably just use. We might even just use a span element with a before and after to generate these dots, and the same with the plus, just so we don't have to worry about drawing icons and whatnot. It can all just be inside the code. Okay. So we have a button green with an image. So we're going to change that image now because that's going to be a span. So change this into a span.icon.add. So just a little update on the CSS, on the HTML side. And we're going to do the same for these menu things here. So span.icon, and I'm going to say this is the menu. So just a slight update there, team. You guys can call that whatever you want. But I'm just going to use these individual elements as opposed to extracting out images. Now, like I mentioned, in a real-life scenario, you would get these assets from a designer. But because this is a flat image, we don't have that access. So, and rather instead of looking around trying to find the right icon that fits it, just going to approximate it ourselves. So first one I'm going to do is span.icon. Span.icon. All right, so we'll set him to display inline block. All right, so we can set the size of it. I think that's probably around 16 pixels high. Yep. We'll say width 1.6 rem, height 1.6 rem. All right. Now in here, I'm going to have the after and the before. Now remember, team, what's the one thing we need to have for our pseudo elements for them to show up?
Content.
Content. Set that to none. Right, that's the important one. Now this looks to be quite thin. I'd say about 2 pixels. Yeah, so that's about 2 pixels wide and high. So we'll say width 2. I'm actually going to set that to a pixel value, not to rem. And it's going to be height 100%. We'll set position relative on the icon. And then we'll say, what else? Background color. We'll grab this just approximate that. It's got quite a lot of blue, no red. Say 88FF. Sorry. I'm just guessing here, team. It's probably a little bit too bright, so we'll say AADD. No, sorry, AA. Yeah, that'll do. And what else? I think that should be it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these guys centered sort of in the center, and then we're going to rotate one of them. All right. So we're going to go left 50%. So if you imagine this bounding, oh, just lost my mouse. You imagine this bounding box that kind of sits around it like this. All right, I just set that to a stroke so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So we're going to have a bounding box that sits around everything. And then we're going to, each of these is going to come 50% in, right, on the left. But then for this one here, we're going to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So left 50%. We're actually going to take it back because it's, if we set it to the left 50%, it's actually going to come out to here. All right, but what we actually want it to do is come back 1 pixel. So we have to set the margin left to -1, which is half the width. All right, so just go margin left -1. So what that will do is just reset that, put dead in the middle, and also set top 0 as well. And then we're just going to rotate on the after, transform, rotate 90 degrees, like that. So let's see what this looks like. Nothing at all. Okay. Come in, start to have a look. So they are showing up. They're just very, very small. I think what we might do is set display block on each of them. See if that fixes it. There we go. So they're a little hard to see, aren't they? Let's do some resetting on the button. So come in here on this button here and go border, none, background. Now the background depends on the color, doesn't it? So we've got this blue one, and we've got this green one and blue one. So why don't we say, and we've actually colored, we've added a class for each of these in HTML. So in here we can go, so the @ inside Sass says grab all of the selector currently and then add something at the end. So in this case, it's going to be OL cards, LI, button, and then @.green. All right. So what this will do is we'll generate a selector of cards, button, green that you see here. So I'm just going to approximate this color, background color. Just make that like a light green. Turn off notifications too. And then we're going to have that blue. So grab this, set that to blue, approximate that. Cool. Okay, let's go back and have a look. The buttons should be looking a little better now. So that green's a little dark. Bring that up. Still a little dark. There we go. And then we also want to have the border radius on those, don't we? So we'll set that border radius to the same one that we had, which I think was 8 pixels. And you'll notice again, I'm not using the rem, the border radius. There's a few things that I don't use rem on, and that's because I don't want them to change if the font size changes. Right, borders are another one. Okay, so it's starting to look a little better. Now, the issue that we're having is these guys aren't. It's because we forgot to add our position absolute. There we go. Boom. So just to recap what we did there, we added a span, right, to wrap to create the little icon. We had the before and the after. Now the before and after identical, except the after just has a rotate on that. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm centering it horizontally. If I add a little background color to this, you guys can see. All right. So the icon has centered the before and after. Remember, we added the width, the left 50%, and then we moved it back one. If we just to show you what it looks like if we don't do that, see how it's not in the exact center now. If you have a look in the context of that red square, so it looks a little funny. And if we rotate this back in, see how it doesn't exactly fit inside the square. So that's why we moved that back one, just to fix that. Right. So I'd say that's pretty much our plus icon done, which is pretty cool. The next thing is to give a little bit more height. I think this was how high? 48 pixels. Let's go back in here. We'll change the button height. So height 4.8 rem. It's all using this sort of base 8 grid size. Right, 8 pixels, 4.8, 1.6, 3.2. Right, this is a very common design system you guys will often see. And there we go. What else? A little bit more padding on this. This looks to be like 16 to me. No, 12. So we'll add height. We'll say padding. We won't have any top padding because we've specified the height. And we'll say 1.2 rem on the left and right. There we go. So I just zoom back out. There we go. So that's our button done, a green button done. Might add a little bit more of a border radius on these guys. So border radius 1.6 or 16, sorry. Yeah, that looks a little better. Kind of more like what they've got there. So any questions on how we just did that little green button icon? Bring this over here so you guys can see the code.
Tristan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the plus, right, the horizontal bar and the vertical bar is appearing due to the after and before.
That's correct. So these guys here. So that's a trick, and I suggest, as you guys start to delve more into front-end development, I want you guys to think about how you can get away with writing less code or using less resources. Right? This doesn't require any resources from the browser to go and fetch an image. It's just code. It runs much faster instantly. Right? The amount of information that's needed to render this as opposed to render an image. And you also have a lot more flexibility with this. You can actually change the color and the width, right? So I recommend the after and before. There are so many amazing techniques that you guys can use with these pseudo elements to create some really awesome results. So definitely get comfortable with learning how to use these things. They're very useful, and you can get away with doing a lot. It makes your code a lot simpler and your HTML a lot cleaner as well.
Tristan.
So, yeah, good question, Rajat. Any other questions on anything? Yeah.
I've seen people using 2 columns before the after and the before. Does it make a difference?
2 columns?
Two.
What do you mean? What do you mean by 2 columns?
Isn't columns the name of that? The 2 dots?
Do you mean? Oh, sorry. Yes, you mean here?
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, I was like, is she talking about the design? Like, what is it? This? No. Okay. So I think semantically, the two colons is more correct. When I first learned after the pseudo, when they first came out, I'm pretty sure it was just one. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was just one. And I just have the habit of doing one. I think they're both correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another question.
Yeah.
As I've also seen people using transform and translate to change they put on 50% left and then they use transform and translate, bring it back.
Yep.
What's the difference between using that and the margin left?
So that's a great question, and I'm really glad you brought that up. So is that Susie talking? I couldn't quite hear.
Yes.
Exactly
yes.
Yeah. So we've got this 50% here, right? And what Susie's saying is instead of using the margin left, people will often go and transform, translate, right? Negative 50% if we do the X. And what that will do is this actually does the exact same thing as this. Now, the reason why we'd want to use this is because it's more flexible. Because in this one here, the margin left, we explicitly say go back negative 1 pixel, which is exactly half the width. But that's less flexible because now we have two hard-coded values, right? This is not a hard-coded value. This doesn't matter how wide it is. It will always go half of its own width. Now, the reason why I didn't do that is because we're using transform down the bottom. So I was just being lazy, but you caught me. So, right now, so the reason why is because in here, right? If we do translate 50%, this here is going to override it. So if you have a look, right, see how this is slightly off? So what we actually have to do is combine them together. Translate negative 50%, and then additionally add this on. Now, this is one of the annoying things about the transform property, is you can't chain them together without doing this. You actually have to repeat it. So that's the only reason why I did margin left.
Okay,
But
thank you.
They're both correct. That's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. It's a very, very common centering technique. In fact, you'll often see people do top 50% and then left 50% as well, and then translate negative 50 here and then negative 50 on the Y as well, right, as a way to center an element right in the middle of the page. So that's a really common thing you see as well. Great questions. Any other questions on anything we've covered so far? Cool. So we're getting there, right? We're starting to see how this is forming. All right, we've got this dark text, so we might make this font weight bold, slightly bolder, give it a darker text, and we're going to give it a margin on the side here. But other than that, I think the first card is actually done. So just a couple of small things left. So let's go ahead and do that. So this looks to be 18 pixels. So the icon, I'm going to go margin white, 1.8 rem, just to give it that spacing. Huh. Sorry, not on the icon, on the button. There we go. And then the text. So what have we got here? We've got a normal span. And then we've got password and number. So normal span. Yeah, I think all of it's that font weight bold. So we can actually add a font weight bold to all of it. And it's all that dark color. So did we specify that dark color anywhere? I think we did in our variables, didn't we? Yeah, we had this color gray 900. Let's go ahead and use that. Color. Now we have to import those variables. Actually, no, we don't, because we're chaining that together through the base. So that's already handled for us. So this bold text for me is a little bit too heavy. I might set it to 500s. Unfortunately, we don't, because when we're importing this font, right, we're only using 400 and 900, 500. So we've only got like 3 weights. I'm not going to spend too much time on font choices and whatnot. We're actually using a different font to what they've got here, so it's not going to look exact. So for now, if it's okay with you guys, I'm actually going to remove the font weight and just set it to that darker text. Is it okay with you guys? Cool. Okay, so that's pretty much this first one done. We'll add some styling to where this sits after we've done each of the cards. So the next thing to do is this Mastercard icon. Now for this one, I am going to go and find an SVG for this because I don't want to do this by hand, especially for the Visa one. All right, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to something called the Noun project. The Noun project has really good icons for pretty much everything. I'm going to just go Mastercard, just see what they've got. Try and find something similar. Maybe if we Google Mastercard Icon SVG, see what they come up with. I want to have that colored one. Just see what we get back. Here we go. So we might be able to find. Whoa! Holy moly! This is terrible user experience. Okay, so we've got this one here. Looks pretty decent. Will allow us to download. No, it won't. We must attribute the author. Okay, we'll just pretend to. So Mastercard SVG, I'll upload these icons for you guys. And then we also want to get the Visa.
Interesting. By attribute the author, they just mean put a comment in your code?
Yeah, I think so. So in our case, we kind of want to have it in that card. So I'm just going to download these. I might do a little bit of editing on them. So this is team where I talk a lot about having skills as a designer as well as a developer. That really does make you quite dangerous. So coming in here and going, I want to have a single color. So whatever this is, right? Grab these guys. Fill. Just set both of them to that darker color. All right. Now I've got this. I'm going to copy this out. All right. I'm going to grab this Visa stuff. Drag him inside. Now this needs a lighter gray. So just select a delete that. There we go. And then we just make this a little smaller. And there we go. So that's going to be the little two icons that we have. It's a little different to what they got here, but you know, for me that looks fine. So delete that SVG. Yeah, there we go. So this is going to be our first one. Just group that. This is our second one. Let's make sure they're grouped. Great. So I'm going to go copy and paste as SVG. This is the Visa icon. So I'm going to paste this into our Slack channel. Does anyone remember what
Yeah, it was
what channel we were using for this?
Front end beginners. Yeah, you've
Was
got
it?
your front end beginners.
Okay. Front end beginners. Okay. So this is going to be the Visa icon. All right. And the second one, just going to come in and grab this group, copy and paste. This is the Mastercard icon. Whoop. That looks a bit strange to me. What's going on there? Copy of this VG. There we go. So I'm just going to use these two icons. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to use these as images as opposed to pasting them directly into the code. So thank you to that website. And I'm going to come back into my code. And I'm going to create an images folder. I'm going to have Mastercard.svg. I'm going to paste in that Mastercard code. All right. That's the first one. And the second one is going to be the Visa.svg. I'll grab that Visa code. Paste that in there. Great. Now, inside our images, Mastercard and Visa. In fact, I don't think we even need a class on these images anymore, because it's just going to be image. Mastercard. Just going to add those alts. I think the second one is Visa. Right. Which is cool. It makes it easy for us to just go like this and go into images, paste it in .svg. Now, if we load this, this will probably look a bit strange. Yep. But it is working, which is nice. So let's turn this into what our design looks like. Okay, so they're quite small. They're only, oops. They're only about 28 pixels wide. So let's go ahead and update that. Draw this out a little bit more. Give us a little bit more room. Okay, so the LI, I'm going to come in here, we're going to target the image, say width 2.8 run. Let's see what that looks like. Much better. Much better. Now, what else have we got? So this guy here, it looks like he's doing a break. So we can add a break to that if we want. Or what we could do I don't really want to add a BI element into this. These BI elements can get quite messy. But I think in this case is probably a decent space for one. So I'm actually going to go ahead after each of these spans. All right, not the first one, because the first one doesn't need it. Just going to add a BR into that. Okay, so this isn't going to work. So what I need to do is, the reason why it's not working is because we want all this to be on the same line. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a div that wraps around this. So we can have this, and we can also have this sitting on the same line together. So I'm going to go ahead and update this HTML. You guys can do this with me. So it's after the button. Let's select all these button elements. It's after the button. We're going to just do normal div, nothing fancy. All right, grab these guys, and then just close that off like that. So that will allow the button and this div to sit on the same line together. Any questions on anything I just did there and why we're doing it this way? This will allow us on the span to set display block. So we might even want to do that. We'll just go span first child. All right, display block. And then this div. So we'll also set display flex on the LI, just so they can sit in the same line. And we're going to go also align items center to set them in the middle. There we go. So almost there. We're also going to do the same thing for the div. So we'll set display flex and align items center. The reason why is because you can see here, see how this is all sort of wonky? Right, it looks like a ladder stepping down. So by setting display flex on the div, right, now we have this problem. So who knows how to fix this in Flexbox? Because we set display block on the first child on the span. But even though it's display block, it's still the same line because of flex. So who knows how to fix this? For those who know flex.
Got a suggestion from Frank, flex direction.
Flex direction, no. So flex direction will change it from a column into a row. So they'll actually put everything on a different line. So we don't exactly want that one. We still want to have it on the row because remember these guys here. We want these guys to sit on the same line together. So how do we add a divider between these two?
You also got something from Cal, justify content.
So justify content will basically move this entire thing in the center. So if we say justify content center as an example, right? That will put. Oh, that doesn't do anything. There you go. Doesn't do anything. That moves things horizontally across. So it's not. It's actually. I'll give you a hint. It's not on the root element. We're not going to modify the div that wraps it. I'll give you a hint. It's on the actual on this span here.
Susie's got one flex grow.
Oh, now we're getting close. Flex grow will help us expand out, right? But we don't want it to just expand out. We want it to actually wrap onto the next line. Remember the fat cousin analogy we have with display block?
I think Frank just caught one of the words you said. He said so he changed it to flex wrap.
Not exactly. So there's a little unknown property that a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with called flex basis. So it's going to do the same thing as display block. Right, we can actually comment this out now. So it's going to be flex basis, I'm going to go 100%. And what that will do is force, or maybe not. I am wrong. And what that will do, I can't hear whatever someone just said. It's very muffled.
You can try again. Say that again. Does someone have a suggestion on the mic?
We need both. So actually, Frank was right. We actually do need the wrap. So flex wrap.
And also,
Right.
Ilshin says flex flow. What's flex flow?
Flex flow, no. So in this case, we want to wrap it. So flex wrap. By default, it's not wrap. I'm going to just take off the flex basis for a second. All right, so flex wrap doesn't do it on its own, but when we add the flex basis 100%, there we go. So let me explain what just happened. There's two things I just did here. It's this one here, all right, and it's also this one here. So these two properties together allow you to do this. So the first one is without this, right? It tries to take up 100%, but because it's not allowing, right? It's not allowing it to wrap because it's no wrap by default. So this is not pushing it onto the new line. So that's why we need this, right? So in combination, it says take up 100% of the width and allow the next item to wrap onto the new line. And if we just do it with flex wrap, well, this hasn't created enough width to justify putting this new stuff on a new line. So in combination together, that is how you get that on a new line. And it's still centered vertically, this stuff, relative to itself, right? I'll show you, take off the align item center. See how it moves? So we're still getting that per row, which is really, really nice. And then on the span, we can also go, say, margin bottom 8 pixels. That might need a display block on it. No, that's good. There you go.
Tristan?
Yeah.
What exactly flex basis is doing? I'm a bit confused on this.
So that's what I was saying before, is flex basis says take up 100% of the width. So it forces, it comes all the way out right here. It forces it to push this next stuff onto a new line. It's the same thing as width 100%.
Oh, so both these elements are now occupying 100%, so it pushes it. But
not both, just this one.
Okay, so the
reason why
it won't work without wrap. Yeah,
that's correct. So we need both the flex wrap and the flex basis 100%. So they're both necessary. In combination together, right? With our powers combined, we can generate this result. Pretty cool, right?
Yep.
Any other questions on anything we just did with that flex?
Yeah, I think Frank has a question here. So flex basis is pushing the box to the edge, and wrap is dropping the box.
Mm-hmm. Dropping whatever's left. So in this case, it's pushing this guy all the way out to the edge, right? And then the flex wrap means that this guy can safely go to the next line.
Okay.
So the two have to live together. What else, team? Any other questions on anything we just covered? Great. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more styling. So who can tell me what's missing between these two? Hey, we're starting to look pretty good now, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder which one is the design.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
between these, right? Like the spacing between these icons and
yep.
Also,
what else?
the
icon.
3 blue ones, there should be dots, not a plus.
Yep. What else?
Mastercard icon has a border radius.
Yes, yeah, we can do that. We can add a border radius to it. We probably should have done that in our design, but yes, we can do that here. What else?
The background image?
We'll get to that later. There's a subtlety that I want you guys to pick up with this.
So some folks saying, so Tony says shadows.
We've done the shadows.
Okay, Andrea, plus icon's not centered.
Yes, so that's another thing which we'll do. I'm actually referring specifically to the text.
Or the font style?
Yes, so the numbers have to decrease. Right, see how that's different? There's actually a subtle difference between this and this. This is slightly smaller than this. And this is slightly bigger. So these four dots, they have to be increased in font size. So we're going to decrease this, and we're going to increase this. And then also add some spacing in between, and also all the other stuff you guys said. So good job, team. These are all the little things you have to think about that the designer does. And that's the reason why when I was first learning this stuff, I had a list as long as my arm of all the things I have to change when I thought something was done. Okay, so we've got the number, which we can easily target. So we'll go dot number. We'll set him to smaller. So let's say font size 1.2 rem. See if that's too small. Right, that looks to be pretty decent to me. And then the password, I like to put that above it because it comes first. Password. Right. That's probably on a tangential note. That's probably some good CSS etiquette. Is you want to have things listed in CSS as they appear on the screen. You go from global to specific, right? Starting at the top of the page, right, and then zooming in, right? So starting at the top of the page, right, OL cards, and then zooming in, but then also the top to bottom, right? So having the span first child as the first item, right? Then having the image, then having the password, then having the numbers. It just helps when people are trying to read your code to visually understand where they're at in the document. So that's just a little trick. For this one, let's say font size 2.4 rem. Yep, that's looking pretty good. And then we'll also add a little margin to them. So margin, it's going to be no top margin. All right, we're going to have on the left and right, let's say 8 pixels, 0.8 rem. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now again, we have this extra font weight that we're not using on this, but you guys can play around with that if you want. So somebody mentioned centering of the icon. What's the easiest way to do that, team? Who knows? In this case, what's the best case we should use for this?
What about alignment? Vertical alignment? So
remember last week we spoke about vertical alignment as when things are sitting in line. Vertical alignment is how they look relative to their children, sorry, to their siblings. So vertical align is a tricky property because it doesn't actually vertically align in the context that you think it will. It's relative to other things. In this case, I would say flex is probably the best tool for the job.
Okay, yeah, we got Ilshin just said flex again. So
yeah, so flex again.
Yes, Ilshin got it.
So we're going to say display flex. So good job, Ilshin. And then it's going to be align items center. Who likes flex, by the way? Who can imagine doing this, which is what I had to do, when there was no flex? That's when I was learning HTML and CSS, there was no flex. There was no grid. So you guys, and then you guys have the audacity to complain about how CSS is hard. Guys, you guys have it easy. I'm just messing with you, but okay. So we got this strange margin bottom 8. I don't know where that came from. Ah, okay. That's because of the first child selector that we have here. So I'm just going to specify that a little bit more, and just go add that to the div. Actually, I'm going to add all of this to the div. That will fix that problem for us. Still a little bit off-centered. At least it looks to be 16, 48. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my eyes. Cool. Okay, so what's next, team? I think we do the 3 icons. So we should probably specify this now. So this is applying to both of them. So in here we'll go dot add. Was it plus? Yeah, we had add. So we'll put this stuff in here. So these last 3 or a couple should remove. Yeah, so it's just for the add icon now, which is good. Now we want to do a similar thing for the menu. So a different style. Also going to add this width and height just in here as well. Okay, so how do we think we're going to approach the 3 dots on the menu, team?
Interesting. Could you ask that one again? I think I might catch it.
Yep. So how are we going to approach doing these 3 dots? These 3 blind mice.
Before and after again?
Yeah, but what about the 3rd element? There's 3 dots here. There's not 2.
Can you use this pen too?
Yes. So we're actually going to use the element itself. All right. So we'll have the before, we'll have the element itself, the actual span, and then we'll have the after. Pretty tricky, right? You guys are learning all the fun stuff today. So in this case, we're going to have the after, or before, the element itself with the ampersand, and the after. So all 3. And we'll say width, that looks to be about 4 pixels, height, 4 pixels. We'll say border radius, 50% to make it a circle. And we'll say background color. And I think we had that color blue 500. All right, let's see what this looks like. Okay. It's pretty decent. I'm just realizing we also need to set a width for that button. Say 32. How large is that? 37. It's a random number. Let's just say 38. So width, where are we? Height, width. Let's say 3.6 to keep it in the base. Okay. So how do we fix this? How do we go about fixing what I've got so far? Well, first thing we need to do is before and after. We need to have the content. Make sure they show up. Okay. Maybe we set a display block. All right. So we've got some stuff coming through now. It's a little random. Let's have a look at our inspector. So we've got the span itself. We've got the before, the before and the span look like they're sitting in the same place. They're not moving. So what we can do is on the before, right, we can set margin top or transform translate. Translate. Well, we're going to do y. Let's say negative 200%. Now that means it's going to move up, right, negative, right, 2 times the size of itself, so 200. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. That's probably a little bit too far, so let's just say 100. So that's an issue because it's right next to itself. So let's say 150. All right, that looks pretty good to me. And then the after. So transform, and then we'll just say 50%. Cool. Looks pretty good to me. And then, so we've centered it vertically, but how do we center things horizontally in Flex? I think Cal had this answer before.
Justify content.
So fingers crossed this works. That's what we've done. Excellent. And let's just check the add. It works with the add too. And there you go, team. So just to recap what we did there, right? We set both the before, the element itself, which is a span, and the after, all to the same style because we want them to look identical. Right? Then we set the before to go back up 1.5 times itself, and then the after, right, to just go down half the time of itself because it was already sitting on the next line. So any questions on anything we just did with that little icon? I'm going to make this a different colored blue as well, while you guys are thinking. Who likes pseudo elements? Now, who's starting to think, hey, CSS is actually kind of cool?
But Tristan, it was always cool. It's just that there are so many properties. Just didn't know that you could do such cool stuff.
It was always cool.
Thanks for that.
CSS is really fun, guys. When you first start out with this stuff, you're like, oh my god, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Using, but really, CSS is quite fun. Once you learn the rules, you can do whatever you want with it. It really is quite a fun language to play around with. It's just quite a lot of intricacies involved.
Yeah, needs a lot of practice though.
It does. That's why we're practicing. That's why we're practicing. Because it needs a lot of practice. You're absolutely right. Okay, so let's just make this full screen. Zoom out a bit, back to where we were. And there we go, team. That looks pretty damn good, I'd say. Obviously, we need to, center it and have it sitting in that position. But, I'd say that looks pretty decent. What do you guys think?
Yeah, pretty. Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
Yeah.
Very close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move it into the center here, and then we'll go for a short break. Work for you guys?
Yep.
Awesome. So for this case, I'm actually going to use position absolute. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So set him over the side on the OL. Right. Position absolute. I'm going to go bottom 0. Now, we probably need to add on our home title position relative so it doesn't escape like this. So who knows about this trick with position absolute and position relative? Who's heard of this before? Or rather, who hasn't heard of this? Because what's happening, right, is currently this section title, I think, is position static by default. So anything that's absolute will actually jump outside of itself. Right, so what we're doing is we're setting position relative on the title, on this section title, right, this whole section here, so that these cards don't jump down the bottom like this. But we want it to be relative to itself. So having position relative on the title element, we'll do this.
Tristan?
Yep.
So just to clarify, position absolute is kind of relative to its parent? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Relative, not to its parent, but relative to anything higher than itself that has either position relative or position fixed or another position absolute.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
But outside of that, it will jump as far. It will just keep going as far back as possible, and eventually it will hit the document, and it'll just hit the document. Cool. Now that's looking a little strange. So we'll notice that the design is actually down a little bit. So I'm just going to guess this, about 64 pixels. So instead of saying bottom 0, we're going to go bottom negative 6.4 rem. Right, so it's sitting in there. Now this looks to be just about 50%. Right, so we're going to go left 50%. There we go. So this design is probably not the most practical design because it doesn't look very responsive and mobile responsive. But overall, looking pretty good. The one thing I'm going to do before we go for a break is just add some this styling or this this shadow. It looks great here, but it does not look great here. So what I'm going to do is instead of setting it to like a light color, I'm going to I'm going to set it to a black color with a very light opacity. And what that will do is it will look good on both of them. So I'm going to go RGBA. I'm just going to say, actually, do we have a blue, a dark blue? We do. We have that black color. So I'm going to grab this color gray. Now this is only possible inside Sass. All right, I'm going to use the anytime you want to use a Sass variable, right, inside parenthesis, it's kind of annoying. You have to use the hashtag braces and put it in there. It's annoying. But I'm pretty sure it's needed. And in this case, we're going to set it to a really low opacity to, like, say 0.1. And is that not working? Color must be a color. Huh. Maybe I don't need to do that. Okay, forget what I just said. And there you go. That's still probably a little heavy. So let's say 0.05. There we go. Just that nice soft color that looks good on both the white and the blue because we're now using opacity as opposed to a solid color that we had before. When you use a solid color, right, it's usually only optimized to look good against another specific color. But in this case, right, we want it to be good against the blue and the white, so we had to use some kind of opacity. So that's it, team. We're going to go for a short break. We'll come back at about 11:30. So chance to stretch your legs, get some water. I'm going to go refill my water. But yeah, I'm going to leave that up for you guys. In fact, before I go, I'm going to push this onto Git as well. So you guys can have all of that on GitHub. So you can copy that. Feature added cards. There you go. So you can get it while it's hot, team. Good stuff. I'll be back in a couple minutes, but we'll come back at 12:30. See you soon.
Cool. See you, Tristan.
Alrighty, team. So what do we think so far? I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. See your faces. Any questions? Anything you guys are... Oh, 37 messages. Cool. Sorry, I don't actually have an opportunity to read these messages as they come through. So, but how we doing on this sunny Saturday here in Toronto? I just looked outside. It's a really beautiful day. Cool. Give it a couple more minutes. Was there any questions anybody had with anything we've done so far?
Pretty good so far.
Cool. Ocean's fun well. That's good. Awesome. For those who are pretty new, how are you guys finding it so far? Relatively new to CSS and HTML. Who? Good to see you, mate. I didn't see it snuck in. What else we got? Nabil. I don't think we've met. Nabil, thanks for coming. A couple of new people. Cool. Give it another 30 seconds and we'll get started. Get back into it. So what do we have left? Let's have a look. We're almost done, aren't we, team? We're almost done. So the last part, I think, is probably just these little icons, which we can get from the Noun project. I'm not going to do these myself. And then just the card, and then maybe that hover state. That looks like a hover state to me. Hover over it, and it gives you that. Removes the border. And then that's kind of be it. I reckon we can probably get that done in the next half an hour to an hour. Keep it short today. Work for you guys? All right, let's get back into it then. So we've already got the HTML for what we need, as mentioned earlier. We're going to have these shapes down the sides. We're going to do a very similar thing to what we did here. All right. So how did we do that last time? I think we used an SVG, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So in this case, we've got a lot of these green dots. We'll do the same thing. Where are we? Figma. I remember we tried to get away with using a background gradient, and it didn't work. I lied to you guys about it. I told you it could work, and it didn't. So I apologize. All right, just gonna approximate this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just say that's about 6 pixels. Great. The nice thing about Figma is it actually locks in stuff for you, like that. Yeah. So it allows you to have equidistant spacing between things, which is very nice. I'll grab all these guys. Do the same thing. Now, because this is such a large SVG, I don't want to actually paste all of this inside of our code. I'm probably going to turn this into just a standard image. And we should make all of that green color. And because we're turning it into an image, we also might as well do a semicircle. And just going to go ahead and delete that thing there. Grab these 2 points. Go join. and selection. And we have a full semicircle that we can play with. Give it that fill. Select that blue. Move it over to the side, and then we'll call it a day. Make sure to grab all of these little dots. Group them. Put them on top. That's it. Copy paste as SVG. And I'll give this to you guys on Slack as well. Come back into our images. Just going to go shapes 2. So you already have those shapes at the top. There you go. There you go, team. It's for you. A present from me to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and update that down the bottom, because I think we had as a div. Yeah, we did. So let's just go ahead and change that to an image. We'll say it's under images, shapes 2. Alt is just going to be shapes. Come back into our browser. Refresh, and there it is. Which is nice. So if we just zoom back out, how is this going to look? Well, it looks like this guy is centered on the vertical axis. So Susie, this is a really good opportunity to use what you were talking before about the top 50% and then translate negative 50%. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. The reason why is because we actually want this to be a position absolute. We don't want it to be sitting in the DOM and affecting the flow of the rest of the document. We want this to be standalone on its own. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we go into our home CSS, all right, we've got the section title, and I think we called it features. So section.features. Image.shapes, or just add a class to that. Class equals shapes. All right. Position absolute. Left 0. All right, we want it to be right up against the edge. This is what I was saying before. So we're going to have top 50%. And remember, we need to add the position relative like we did for the title. So let's see what this looks like so far. All right, so top 50%. And then it's going to be transform, translate, y, negative 50%. Just set that back out to the top. Now we're getting some strange. How high is this? Ah, okay, that's because our section features are so small. All right, that's why it looks funny like that. So as we start to expand this out, that will look a little bit more normal. So speaking of which, why don't we start adding some of this padding that we've got here. 56 and then 80. Okay, so we're going to say padding top, 5.6R, padding bottom is 80. 8 rem, sorry. Come back over here. There we go. Now it's starting to look a little bit better. Just going to check that wrapper. So we had this wrapper. It centers it horizontally. Now, did we add that in as a class? Yep, we did. So I'm going to do the same thing for everything inside here. I'm going to wrap it inside the wrapper. So grab all that content except the image. He can sit outside. All right, that will, yep, center that in the middle, just what we wanted. Now, who knows how to fix this problem here with this text underneath
Set
the
index?
image? Yeah, pretty basic. Who knows why it happens?
Does it
That they-
depend which is rendered to the screen first?
Usually, but in this case, it's because we've set position absolute.
Oh,
So it takes it out of flow and puts it on the top or the bottom, depending on what you set. This is an index. In our case, it's going to go -1, so underneath. And there you go. Still looks pretty crap. So again, we haven't optimized this for mobile at all. This design we chose, while it looks great, right? It's not. It's not very.
I guess for
practical.
mobile, there would be a completely different design.
Yeah, you'd have to do something different, because yeah. All right. So what else? Go to our design. Simple spending solution. I'm gonna add a little bit of margin between these guys. That looks to be about 30, 20, say 32. So that's on the H2. Say margin bottom 3.2 rand. Yep. And then on this guy here, this is about 56. So that's on the H3. Margin bottom 5.6 rand. There you go. A little bit more space in between these guys. Okay, so let's get into doing these little feature card element things. They're pretty basic. Yeah, there's nothing really fancy with these. I'm going to go ahead and just select 3 random icons. I've downloaded an icon kit called UI Icon Kit. You guys can use anything from the Noun project, or let's find where they were. I got core icons. So I'm just going to use these. In fact, I might even just use. I'll use this for you. It's fine. It's your turn. I'm just going to choose random ones. Let's open this up in Figma. Sorry, VS Code. Just going to set this to icon 1. All right, I'm not overthinking this at all, team. I'm just literally grabbing whatever icons. Basket. I would give you these icons, but unfortunately, there's copyright protection on them, so I'm not able to give them because I purchased them. How many do we need? We need 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So random busts. Again, usually these things are usually provided by your designer.
Interested, if they got copyright, how does it? Are you able to put them onto GitHub? Like if you put this code on GitHub?
I guess I am. Yeah, I guess I am. That is my license, so I just don't know if I can like give people icons. I'm not sure. You guys can grab this off GitHub if you want. I'll add them on. Push this in a second. Icon 4. Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's go and add these icons to the image. I'll bring that up here so you guys can see. So image source, there you go, images, icon dash. And I've actually got a little cool plugin where I can go insert sequential number. I highly recommend you guys do it. Type 1, and then we'll actually fill that out for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. These random icons. So let me push that onto GitHub for you. There you go, team. So that stuff is on GitHub if you want to use it. Okay, so let's go ahead and style these guys. So bring up our Figma. So the image, I think the size is quite small, so we'll say 16, no, 32. So let's say height 3.2. Great. And then also, all right, we're going to have the card, this rounded corners. So let's go ahead and add the rounded corners on here. Bring up our HTML again. So what are we using for this? Just a standard list item. Okay, so here we'll go border radius, say 1.6 rem. We have a border. Do we have that light gray in our variables? Yep, we do. Use that color gray 100. Border 1 pixel. Again, not rem with this one. Solid. All right, you guys can see that. So a little faint border. Say padding 1.6 rem. Right now it's starting to form, which is cool. Now on the UL, I'm actually going to set this to display grid, and then say grid template columns to repeat 4. So we want 4 of them, right? And then 1 FR. The FR stands for fraction. So we want them to be exactly the same size. Sometimes with Flexbox, you can get some strange issues where like say all these pieces of text are different lengths, which they often are. So grid forces it to be the same size. It's a little bit more strict than Flexbox. And there you go. Now the image, we're going to say, this is where we use vertically aligned middle. Like that. And then, what else? You know what? Inside the LI.
Hey, Tris, this is a quick one. Susie said on the chat, what's the name of the plugin for numbers?
Oh, I can't seem to. Yeah.
That's the VS Code plugin.
I would tell you, but VS Code seems to be broken right now. I can't load my extensions. I don't know why. For some reason, it's not allowing me to view them.
Okay.
I think it's like insert. Just type in like insert sequential number. I think have a look for that. Also Google it because they show up on Google. So I'm going to use display flex again for this icon text situation. So I'm going to do that to the LI. Display flex. I think all of my plugins are broken right now. VS Code is doing some very strange things. Line item center. Why is that? very annoying. I think because I had restarted my VS Code, it stopped doing the yarn watch. So I'm just going to restart that process again. There we go. Okay, so we're going to add a little margin left, margin right on the icon. We'll say 1.6 rem. And there you go. What else? So this color is probably a little. I'm going to set the font size to be a little smaller. So font size 1.4 rem. Maybe 1.2. Oh, sorry, not on the image, on the span, or the LI. That's too small, so we'll go back to that 1.4. Yep, there we go. Now, the other thing that you guys might notice is the line height on this is quite high. So we've got quite a bit of spacing between these lines, as opposed to what we've got. So we're going to go ahead and add some more line height. Line height. Now, generally, all right, for readability, generally I have line height at about 1.7 to 1.8 of the font size. In this case, I'm going to set it to 2, just to see. That's way too big. So let's say 1.7, 1.75. Yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that. We should probably add some nice green color just to make it look a little bit more like the design. So I'm going to go through and edit these icons. I'm going to pick out that green color. Now, the way these icons work is they actually have some fills already for us. So just going to go ahead and insert that like this. As you can see, my cat is very excited about these icons. Very excited. All right, so I'll do that here. Fill current color. Same here. Same here. And same here. Okay, let's have a look, see what that looks like. Yep, so it's looking a little better. Just that first one, that gray, current color, just fix that. And there we go. Team, I reckon that's almost done. Got a couple more issues.
It's looking good.
Yeah, we've got a couple issues with the shapes. They're quite small. So we'll fix that up. All right. So bring this back onto the side again. So home, HTML, CSS. So these shapes. Ah, okay. Just image. That's why they got so small. So move that back out. There we go. What else, team? I think we need a little bit of a margin or a padding bottom on this, just to make sure that the button is not against the edge, like that. As you see in the design, there's a little bit of a spacing between them. Let's go ahead and add that in. We can actually just do that with a padding bottom. So to say 8 rem. Great. Looking good. Now, what's the last piece?
the last piece.
Yeah.
Background image.
Yeah, we gotta have some dude here, right? What? Say what? Say what? You forgot about me? So
Also,
I'm gonna
Andrea says the add new card that the line isn't centered.
the line isn't centered.
Take a look at your web page.
Oh,
Oh, I see that. Yeah,
despicable. Despicable. Look
gotcha.
at that. Trust the designer to give me a list. I still haven't learned. All right, thanks, Andrea. Andrea. Now you've got me saying Andrea. Shane.
Andrea, okay.
Sorry, Andrea. Good pickup. Where is that? That's under the card component. And we're going to have an align item center. There you go. Good pick. Okay, so I'm going to go to a website called mrcutout.com. All right, so you can actually find some people here. I'm just going to go. I have a pretty terrible search. So cutouts, people. I'm just going to search for confused. Okay. Maybe just standing. I don't even. This is a banking app, isn't it? Drinking coffee. Probably don't want drinking coffee. I don't know. Choose whatever. We do want something. What's nice about this picture here is he's looking at you. He's looking at the camera. This guy might work. I think that's a. Download this. Download a extra large. We'll just do a large. It's fine. All right. Just send that to you guys. There you go. I might edit him a little bit, purely because we don't want the whole body. We just want his torso. So I'm going to do something like this. There's a technique called masking. So use this as a mask, and there you go. All right. Just bring him up. The whole sides of it. There you go. So that's pretty much going to be our image. I'll crop him in a little bit. Cool. That's it. So I'm going to go copy as PNG. Give you guys the updated one. There you go. Going to export this into our projects. Code mentoring, UI breakdown, images. Of course, man. Oh man. And then on the let's do it as a background image. Let's try that. So on the title, we go background image All right, actually going to go URL images man.png. See if this works. No, I think I always forget exactly how to do multiple background images. Let's, did I misspell it? Ah, that's because it's under CSS. So we're not hosting this from a server. So in this case, I'm actually going to do, normally I wouldn't do this. So if you'll forgive me, team, I'm going to do a relative thing here. Okay, so he's there.
From a server, would you give like a full URL from the domain?
Yeah, I do it absolute. I do relative to the root.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to add him as an image. So forget about that. And title, put him right down the bottom. And we'll say image, source, images. I can spell. Images/man. And we'll give him class as well. Class equals man. All right. Image.man. Position absolute. Bottom 0. Left 50%. Transform. Translate. Negative 50%. Transform X. Yes. Why did that text go funny? Funny color. Huh. I don't remember changing that. Or was it always like that? I'm just tripping. We'll make him a little smaller. So we'll say max height, let's say 30 rem. A little too small. Double that. And there you go, team. It's not perfect, but it'll do. Get a bit of text overlapping here and whatnot, but
There was one thing I was real curious about. Can you see the design? Yeah, so see the way on a title, the anyone and anywhere has like a shade of color. How do you do that?
So we can jump into that, definitely. I don't know if it's supported in all browsers. So text gradient CSS. So this is essentially what you're asking to do.
See, right.
And I don't think it's supported all. Yeah, you have to use like clipping. So I don't think it's supported in all browsers, but we can give it a go. So if you guys just Google CSS gradient text, you'll come up with this link. So what we're going to do is just set the background as a linear gradient, and then this is the important part: is the clipping. So we're setting the background clip to text, and then the background text fill color is the transparent. So the text doesn't have anything, but then it clips it to the background, and then the background shines through. So it's a bit of a trick. I don't know what the browser support is for this. Have a look on another website. They might have something a little bit more modern. We can approach. Yeah, it's the same thing. Same kind of thing. So Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything for. Oh no, maybe this is. Maybe this can work. Yeah, here we go. This is a little bit more. I'm going to update the colors for this, and then I'll give this to you guys. So what I'm going to do is to target this. I have to write a span to wrap anyone and anywhere. So I'm going to come into my HTML. In the H1, there we go. Wrap with the span, and then also anywhere. Wrap with the span. And then in the home H1, the span. We'll change colors in a second, but let's just see if it's working. There you go. So that's how you do it.
That's cool.
So let's change the colors. So we've got this light blue and this middle blue. So we're going to actually go even lighter. Yeah. So like a 2. Say this is like a 200. We'll go really light. Let's put a little bit of a teal thing going on. Right. So we'll go from 200 to maybe 500, 600. So color 200. Right, we don't want 45 degrees. We want it to be straight. So I think it's 0 degrees. Although that might be from top to bottom. We'll see. 200 and then going to the color 600. Yep, so we'll say 90 degrees. And there you go. It looks a little crap. Just that's because the fonts are a bit off. We don't have the right images. If the fonts were better, you know, this would look a lot more like the design that we've got here. One thing I'm noticing is the H1 size is too big, so I'm gonna bring that down. To the type. So I'm going to bring this down to about 4.8. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Again, it's the weighting that's throwing me off. If you really wanted to find a better font, you could certainly do so. But I might even bring that down a little further. So let's say 4.4. Maybe 3.6. We'll try and get it onto the same line. It's not wrapping like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It still looks a little funny, but you know. So that's pretty much it, team. I mean, might give a font weight bold onto the H2 there. Yep, that looks much better. Just that little green one there. We're going to need to add some spacing in the grid, as you can see here. So come back into home. In the grid, let's say grid gap. Say 1.6 rem. So a little bit of spacing between those guys. Now we need to add the hover to the card as well. I personally don't like doing that unless you're able to click on it, but that's what the design has here, so might as well do it. So the li at hover. All right, let's just use that same box shadow that we had here. And I'll make it. Why does it look like that? Let's say, let's close it is. Wait. Sorry, I chose the wrong box shadow. I meant the one from card. Where is that box shadow? This one here. Yep, so hover over that now. Gives us that shadow. And we also remove the border.
A few suggestions in the chat there as well.
Yeah.
It's got Susie. Susie's asking, can we make the wrapper wider so it won't overlap?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So I think we define that in the base. Yep, the wrapper. Let's say 140. There you go.
Oh, nice.
We might make these cards a little wider. I will say width 80. Way too big. Say 30. Try 40. Yep. What else, team?
And Andrea has she wants to see space between the H1 texts. I think that's a line height.
Yep. So leading.
Designer.
Is that Andrea?
Andrea.
Andrea, come on, use your technical terms. What do we call that? It's called leading.
Leading.
So the leading, we're going to increase the leading. For the CSS developers, it's called line height, but for a designer, it's called leading.
Good to know.
Type. So in this case, we'll say, let's say line height. Let's set it to 2. Let's have a look at what that looks like. We'll set it to, again, it really does sit and hover around this 1.75. I'm telling you guys. It's probably a little bit too big. Say 1.6. Yeah, that looks good to me. What else, team?
Tony has an interesting one. If you look at the design, the corners are rounded. That might be just because it's an image itself.
Yeah. So this is not the full web page. This is just the design.
Right. So that rounded corners are just
Yeah.
You can ignore them. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just the frame of how the designer has decided to present it.
Interesting. What's the meaning of kerning?
Kerning. Great. So kerning.
Yeah, I think
kerning
Andrea is getting very technical.
No, that's it. Yeah. So kerning is is the spacing between letters. Now you can get really specific with kerning. Like if I'm designing a logo, I will get really specific with individual letters in the kerning. If I'm looking at headings, for example, and this is like a really popular website, I'd be looking at like making sure that all of the, like, for example, we might want to add a little bit extra space between the A and the R here, or you might want to reduce, you might want to close this gap between the Y and the W and make it a little bit closer. Like that's kind of what kerning is getting into. Now in CSS, this translates to a property called letter spacing. So, for example, what was it in context of? The kerning of what?
I think Andrea was just putting out a technical term.
This here, right? This kerning, or let's say that H2. This looks a little bit too tight. Let's say we want to space this out. So we could increase the kerning, or in CSS we call it line height, right? Let's say our H2, we set sorry, not line height, letter spacing. Let's say let's set the letter spacing to 20 pixels. Now that's obviously ridiculous, but you guys get a sense of what that's like. So instead of saying 20 pixels, let's set it to something like maybe 1 or 0.8. So 1 pixel. Right now you see, as we toggle this, see that the difference that it makes? Now we might want to go for a particular style where that actually wants, that to me, that looks good. That looks better than the other one. So I'll have to do it with buttons as well, button text. Typically I'll set the kerning for anything that has uppercase to about a 1, typically. Not always, but it allows the uppercase letters to breathe a little bit more. Remember we were talking on a deep dive day a couple of weeks ago about spacing and letting things breathe. This is one of those techniques with regards to your kerning. So I'm just going to set letter spacing to 1 there. I might also do it for the H3, but I'm going to say 0.5. There you go. So it just gives it a little bit more space. It's not unreadable. It's just a little nicer. All right. So let me do a comparison. All right. So this is with the letter spacing, and this is without. See how it just makes it a little bit more prominent, a little bit easier to read. All right. Zoom in a bit more. See that difference? So, yes, definitely a good call, Andrea. What else, team? What else do we think? This header feels a little bit imbalanced to me, but we'll leave it for now.
So Susie's saying with the blue dots on the green circle should be a little bit more centered. Can we compare that to the design?
Blue dots. No, that's actually off-centered deliberately. Okay, yeah, you can have it centered. I like it like this personally. I like it a little bit of an off-centered thing. Personally, that's more of a stylistic taste. You guys can edit that yourself. I personally like it like that. What else? I mean, it's not far off, guys. Really. Oh, for your company. Simple spelling solution for your company. Fix that bit of copy up. There you go. So this is what the designer used to do to me. Right? They would actually grab this image. They'd use I don't think I have it on Brave. Let me load up Chrome. They have this tool called Pixel Perfect. All right, this one here. I have to enable. Hang on. Chrome extensions. What is it saying? Have to add Pixel Perfect. Allow access to file URLs. There you go. So they would come through, right? They would grab a picture, the actual design. Let's export this. All right, so just to the desktop. right? They would come in, they grab a layer, right? And then let's say we scaled this. I don't know why it's so small. This has changed quite a bit since I last looked at it. But I'm pretty sure you can scale it.
All right, so it's like tracing.
Yeah.
Image.
And then they turn it on and off. And I don't know why I can't scale it. Settings. Yeah, it doesn't look like I can scale it. But essentially what they would do is they would put this on the page, right? And they'd line up everything and they'd toggle it on and off and they'd see what moved. Right?
All right.
That was intense to watch, to see them do that, because, and they asked me to do it as well, right? Before I submit the design to them, or the code to them, they'd want to see what moves around. And this had to be done for all browsers. So, you know, I really want to try and get this working.
Yeah, just a quick one. So for the drop-down menu, I think two of them are drop-downs. They have a little
they are
little thing. So is CSS the best approach to have a drop-down, or do you need to have JavaScript?
I think there might be a little bit of JavaScript that's required for it. You could probably do some really fancy things with CSS and like hovering over stuff. Yeah, you could probably do that with CSS alone. It might get a little annoying. It depends how you do your containers and stuff, and whether it has a background image or a background color. Because when you hover over it and then you go to the drop down and then you move out of it again, sometimes it can actually close it. So you have to do some tricks where you nest the drop down inside the element itself, so that when you move out of it, it doesn't close it. But that is doable. Yeah, that's definitely doable. Well, that looks cool, doesn't it? So yeah, drop downs are a little tricky. We probably don't have time for that today. I kind of wanted to wrap up, but I can definitely help out individuals who need some help with that. What else, team? What else do you think? I think it's pretty good, like for what we've done so far.
Tristan,
Someone was going to say.
I was going to say, it looks really good. Thank you. I have a question on, like, can you speak on using frameworks? Like, as opposed to, like, could this be done with something else? Or is it, like, for learning purposes, CSS is, like, what you chose today?
I chose it for learning purposes. So, sorry, I don't actually know who's talking.
Oh, my name is Nabil. I just joined today.
Hey, thanks for joining, mate.
Hey,
welcome to Code Mentoring. No, so we chose to not go with a framework. It's a good question. I personally don't like frameworks, like CSS frameworks. I find it's usually quite easy to do it myself. The reason why we didn't, I highly recommend you guys start with just the plain CSS and just plain JavaScript. Don't use frameworks to begin with, because you won't understand what you're doing. And when it comes to trying to change the framework or extend it, or a new framework comes along, or the industry decides to not use it anymore, you're kind of screwed. So learn the fundamentals. That's kind of why I focus on just plain CSS. Like you'll look in the code. There's no frameworks here. The only package we're using for npm is Node Sass, just to compile the thing. There's nothing else. There's no links other than our own stuff. Yeah. So that's the reason why, is because it helps you guys learn better. It might be a little bit more laborious to begin with, but you know. And then on Project CM, we're using a excellent library called Tailwind CSS. So I highly recommend looking into this. There's a lot of them out there, guys. You know, you can get into your, yeah, please don't use Bootstrap, but a lot of people like Bootstrap. The reason why I don't like it is because all of your websites look, well, as they call them, bootstrappy. They all look the same. So, you know, Bootstrap is cool, but you guys are developers, but you're not just some person trying to hack together a website. You guys are developers. You guys should learn this stuff, and Bootstrap is kind of cheating. All right, this does not teach you how to code.
Interesting. I wonder if Bootstrap would be difficult to make a design have such control where you need to make.
Yes, that's why I decided not to. Yes.
Yeah, like turn an image into, and if you're going to be a front-end developer, and you're getting these designs, they're going to be very specific designs. So you're going to want to have that control.
Yeah. When you're first starting out, right? When you're first starting out, this might be quick for you, but very quickly you'll start to encounter issues where you're like, oh yeah, but I really need to do like such and such thing, or whatever, and you'll actually find that you're spending too much time trying to hack outside of the framework and try to create workarounds that it's actually just, I found it quicker to just create my own, use my own. That's why I like Tailwind, because Tailwind isn't like this big thing. It's utility based. So it's use classes to target very specific things, and you just chain the classes together. So I really like Tailwind for that reason, because it's not trying to solve all the problems like Bootstrap does.
Awesome. Thank you, Tristan.
No worries.
Right.
Yeah. What else, Tim? I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can see your faces.